Welcome to Ahead of the Game, a podcast brought to you by the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm your host, Will Francis, and today I'll be talking to Brian Finnerty, who's the CMO of D2L, an educational software company with a long career in educational products and services, spanning all the way back to the mid-90s, most of which he spent in the San Francisco Bay Area, where he's now, like I say, CMO of D2L, and we're going to talk to him about marketing educational products and services, and how he got where he got to in his career. Brian, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Cheers, Will. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I love talking about marketing. I love talking about education technology. So hopefully we can have a good chat today.
Right, so that's what you call the things that because you started working at Skillsoft in the mid-90s, and throughout your career, it's educational technology that you've really focused on, is it?
It is, and it was more by accident than by design. I studied English and German and philosophy in college in UCD back in the day, and did my primary degree, and then I decided I would really just loved English literature of all shapes and sizes, so decided to do a master's in Anglo-Irish literature again at UCD, and I kind of came out of that 4-year experience, which it was for me, wondering what on earth I was going to do with my life. I knew I liked to write and communicate, in written word was one of the things I love to do, and I thought I could do decently well. And coming out of college, it just so happened that I started to work for a company called CBT Systems, subsequently called SmartForce, and now Skillsoft, as a technical writer. And I think I learned as much in that role as I did in my 4 years at college about how to communicate well, to take very dense, complex technical material, structure it with the help of some excellent editors and other people working at the company at the time, and basically learn how to be a good writer and how to communicate well. So that was my entree into ed tech and the technology world. And honestly, I never look back. I love that job. A great bunch of people in the company, and that was kind of my launch pad and my start point for my career. So it all started with technical writing and with ed tech.
Interesting. So did you see yourself as a creative coming out of college, like a creative writer?
I definitely, I wrote poetry, and I was very much into fiction, nonfiction. I was pretty voracious, and still am a pretty voracious reader. But I also knew that I needed to find a job, make some money, and build a career. But my folks were teachers, so I was always interested in education. Thought briefly about being a teacher myself, but again, once I kind of navigated my way into a tech company, I sort of felt like I'd found my calling. Like this is kind of what I want to do. I want to use my writing skills to communicate, about technology, to communicate about education, to help people learn. So I felt like I landed in a good spot, and I found a vehicle for my talents, whatever they were at the time, and I just really got sort of sucked into that whole world, and releasing products, releasing content, creating high quality learning materials. I just got hooked, and that's been a constant throughout my career, I would say.
Interesting. So fast forward to D2L, where you are now. Just give us a little bit of background on what D2L does.
So D2L is a fantastic company. We're an edtech company. We've been around for about 25 years. Our tagline is that we transform the way the world learns. And I would describe it as very much a mission-driven company. So we're focused on learning technology, but putting people at the center of learning, because we think that's where real learning happens. The tools and the tech and the AI all enable that learning experience. But ultimately, it's people at the heart of the learning experience that matters to us. And we believe that everybody deserves access to a high quality education, regardless of whether it's K through 12, as they call it over here, whether it's third level college education, higher education, or it's in a corporate training environment. The company, to give you some background about D2L, we've over 1,000 employees. We reach about 18.5 million learners right now, and that number is growing all the time. And we've got about 1,300 customers worldwide. So,
and is that through a learning platform like an LMS kind of thing.
Exactly. It's an
Mm.
LMS, and we have add-on products that allow you to create learning content, to track and
Right.
monitor how that content is used, to build and measure competencies. So, and we also have recently announced an AI layer called D2L Lumi, that helps educators basically build more engaging, more interesting content. So it's a combination. The core product is an LMS, and we've built some
Mm.
add-ons to kind of enhance the learning experience for customers that need it.
Well, go on then. It's irresistible to ask you about the kind of AI element of that. Really, how is I mean, just broadly speaking, how are you seeing AI change education, LMSs, educational technology, and is it all for the better?
Like any technology, it's got great potential. It's got the potential to do great things, and it's got the potential to do not so great things. I think for a company like us, like our stance on AI is very much that it is, again, it's a tool that we use to enhance the learning moment, the learning experience. It is can be incredibly powerful, for content creators, for example. AI is a really powerful way to generate new question types, to summarize material, to translate
Mm.
material. So I think if it's used in the appropriate setting, it can be a huge efficiency driver. And it can also be a way, because it is generative AI, it actually helps you generate really good foils for questions, really good
Yeah.
analysis of topics, and takes a lot of the what I would consider grunt work out of the work that we do every day as educators. So I think it has huge upside potential there. Where I and other people get concerned is if you start to think of AI as replacing people in
Mm.
education and in learning, then I think can have negative consequences, because you're removing the learner from, the people who educate and who teach. And I don't think that's a positive use of AI.
Yeah, I'd worry about that if I put a generative AI feature in any product, because you'd worry that people would see that as a lazy shortcut to get a course made, and ultimately the end product is less good than it would have been if a human had even reluctantly put in the work to do it. So it is got to be applied carefully, I think, right?
Yeah, carefully, human oversight is key. Like certainly that's the way we've approached AI, that it will suggest alternatives and it will
Okay.
recommend, but ultimately you have the power and the control to accept or reject those suggestions. So still, humans at the center of the learning experience, like
Mm.
that's really important. I think the other important factor for AI in education is like, how is it leveraging your data? Do you have control over that data? Is a vendor storing any of that data? In our case, we've made, it absolutely essential that we don't,
Mm.
store customer data or leverage it in any way to train our large language models. And I think that's really important. You want your customers to be 100% in control of their data, and how an AI layer would interact with any of that data.
Yeah, true. It all comes back to trust, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as well about the kind of your space LMSs or learning management systems, right? Because there was an explosion of them during the pandemic. Loads of startups. I feel like every day on Product Hunt in 2020, there was some new way to teach people stuff, whether it was on demand, live, cohort based. How have you dealt with that as one of the kind of larger incumbents in the space?
Yeah, I mean, it has waxed and waned. I mean, the D2L has been around for 25 years. I'm relatively new to the company, but I know the space pretty well at this stage. I would say, like, it's been a crowded space. There's been a lot of smaller players that have been, snapped up, and consolidation continues to
Yeah.
happen. There's been a lot, certainly among our competitive space. There's been a lot of public companies taken private, and sort of refinancing and so on. Um, I think one of the things D2L can be very proud of is stability. Like, we've had 25 years as, a company that controls our own destiny. Like, we are a public company on the Canadian stock exchange. So that's a big step up in terms of reporting and maturity and your ability to project, your future performance and all that good stuff. But I think we've stayed very committed to our mission and focused on that, transforming the way the world learns and the way people experience learning in a positive way. And haven't been distracted by a lot of the noise and the flotsam and jetsam that happens in an
Mm.
industry like this, which is, you're right, it's been very turbulent, very noisy. There's been great big successes. There's been great big failures. Like to me, D2L is like we're kind of a constant, and we've continued to reinvest in innovation and focus on that learning
Yeah.
experience that I talked about. And that's one of the positive things that drew me to the company, for example.
Interesting. So thinking about the marketing mix there, what do you find works best for D2L in terms of channels and the kind of tactics and the way that you drive awareness, consideration, and conversion through the funnel?
From a marketing perspective, D2L is a fascinating challenge, right? We have multiple go-to markets. So we sell into the K-12
Mm.
market, for example. We sell into higher education, and we sell into the corporate space as well. So
Mm.
as a CMO, that's a really interesting challenge, and that's one of the things that appealed to me about the company. I've worked for companies where we've had fairly complicated go to markets, but it would also always be like based on the size of your customer. Are you mid market? Are you enterprise? Are you direct
Yeah.
to consumer? I think with D2L, we've got that added kind of challenge, an interesting challenge of having very different go to markets and a very different audience. Um, for us, the way we've approached that, and I think it's very smart, is that we focus on the ideal customer profile in each of our go to markets.
Yeah.
And that helps us stay really focused. Like that helps us only go after accounts that fit that customer profile, where we know that we're a good solution for the pain points that they're experiencing. And from a marketing perspective, that really allows us to target our investments appropriately, right? So really looking at the ideal customers and looking at the target accounts that are in market and showing buying intent allows you to take what's always a limited marketing resource, budget,
Yeah.
and time of your people and focus it on the right accounts and the right parts of your ICP. So that's been
Mm.
that discipline that we've applied to the market has really paid off, and so we're able to get what I would consider a bigger bang for our buck as a result of how we approach marketing.
Um, is it predominantly digital channels that you're using? Is this more account-based marketing, very, very focused on very specific, basically winning specific clients?
It's not all
Yeah.
it's not all digital, Will. I mean, it's certainly a big component of it. And I'm a big proponent of account-based marketing. So we do focus on our target accounts layered down
Mm.
from our ICP and break it out by industry and by persona. And I can talk at length about how content plays into that. But
And just for our listeners, ICP, you mean
ideal
ideal
customer
customer?
profile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we would look at multi-channel activation though, so it's not all digital. We do invest in events. We run our own user conference. We actually just finished it in July in Toronto. We had about 1,500 customers and some partners and prospects there
Mm.
as well. So that's a big lift and a big investment on the company's part. But we run global events throughout North America, EMEA, and APAC as well. So events are a big part of our overall marketing
Interesting.
activity, but we index on webinars, we index on content marketing, um, digital, although we always apply the account-based segmented approach to our digital spend. So
Yeah.
we're really focused on that close set of target accounts that we care about in each of our go-to markets.
Interesting. And it is global. So, obviously we have a very global listener base. Our listeners are literally from every corner of the planet. And we know that they're very interested in marketing something that is international, in nature, because that comes with its own challenges, right? How do you deal with the fact that you're in so many different markets?
Um, Challenges and opportunities, yeah. Like we're a global business, and I love that about D2L. because it gives you opportunities to grow, obviously, as a company, and
Mm.
you'll typically find that you're more mature and you have stronger operations in one part of the world than you have in another. But that's a that's a high growth opportunity, and then certainly in our case, the competitive set is different internationally than it would be in North America. So
Yeah.
certain companies are stronger international, whereas that's not the case in, in North America. Excuse me. Um, so I think running a global marketing team is an interesting and a fun challenge. I definitely am a believer in sort of having marketing teams in the region that they support. So we have team members and offices across the world, and that's important because you want marketing to be very aligned with the local sales team, and you want them to be aligned with the local customer base as well. So we essentially, our marketing org is structured geographically so that we can
Yeah.
support all of our go-to markets in each of the regions that we cover. And I think that's because we do a lot of events and because we do a lot of customer marketing. It's
Yeah.
really important that we have highly skilled marketers in region who understand those regions, understand the pain points of the customers, some of the cultural and language differences that you'll see around the world. So, myself for that is like everything else, it comes back to people, having good people in situ, executing your marketing campaigns and integrating with sales and customer success. That's the key to being an efficient global marketing engine, I think.
It is. How do you personally deal with that? Deal with having people reporting to you in different cultures, languages, markets? What have you kind of personally learned or been forced to learn handling that as part of your job?
I love it. I mean, it's one of the parts of the job I really enjoy. First of all, you've got to get out of the living room and visit your teams, right? So it's really important that as a marketing leader that you're present and that you're
Mm.
regularly showing up and meeting the team. There's constant new hires, there's new folks moving into roles, and until you've met someone in person and a team in person, it's really hard to get that connection. I was really lucky at D2L the first day that I started in the company. We did a marketing summit in our HQ in Canada, and we had everybody fly in and come in and sort of meet me. And I got to meet everybody. Now, there were a few people who couldn't make it, but for the most part, the whole marketing org was there. So that was a great start. But to manage a global team, I think you have to jump on a plane and you have to get out there and meet the sales organization, meet the customer success team. So I think that's the first thing that you need to do. And then the second thing you need to do is build a culture as a global marketing team. And that could be as simple as doing a monthly conference where you have multiple people who present, like you're presenting a
Mm.
specific international campaign that performed really well. And here's the amount of pipeline that we generated, and here are the channels that we activated in market, and here's the competitive play that we ran. And that could be very, very different from what you're doing in another region of the world, right? So it's giving your international global team equal ownership of the agenda at collective
Yeah.
meetings like that. I think is really important. In addition to getting everyone together in person at least once a year or as often as you can feasibly do it.
Yeah, it's difficult that, isn't it? Because that thing about culture, a recent episode that we did, I talked to a global recruiter, a guy who runs a recruitment firm globally in marketing, and they do this annual survey and found that above salary and location and working conditions, all the things you would think about, the most important thing about job choice was culture, you know, in our industry and in their findings anyway. And I think that's interesting. That's really rose up. It's really risen up the agenda in recent years for employees, particularly. They want to work somewhere where they feel understood, where they feel like they're in the right kind of company with like-minded people. So it must be really hard to build that culture globally.
Yeah.
Um, but it sounds like you're doing some good things there, to overcome the obvious barriers with that. And like you say, you just got to get out and meet people and get those people meeting other people, right?
Yeah, I mean, culture is hugely important. I think the mission of the company is kind of a starting point. Like with a company like D2L and some other companies I've worked at, there's been a real sense of mission that you're doing something that's
Mm.
meaningful, that is a positive impact in the world, right? Like at the end of the day, it's still a commercial entity, and you're looking to grow and
But I can
really
imagine you have that particularly in the ed tech sector, right? This
exactly.
feeling of mission that you maybe don't have in the sort of fried potato chip sector, you know?
Yeah, like it's not a no offense to accountants, but not like a financial optimization platform that just,
Yeah.
makes your business run more efficiently, like 5% more efficiently. Like when
Mm.
you're in learning and education technology, you're definitely in a space that has an impact on people's lives. And education is, ultimately, it, it's a vehicle that people can use to improve their lives and their families' lives, and so that there's a really positive impact. It's one of the most powerful
Mm.
forces in the world.
Mm.
So I think working for EdTech means that you attract people who um, are find that kind of sense of mission appealing, and that almost helps you build the culture that you need to keep folks together, keep your retention rates high, your
Yeah.
attrition rates low, all that good stuff. Like if you have that kind of that glue holding it all together, it makes it a little easier. Now, I mean, you still have to make it an enjoyable, friendly culture where people can feel like they can be themselves and do their best work. You still have to watch out for the grind of meetings. Like, one of the things that we instituted at D2L in marketing was protected time, like on a Wednesday afternoon, no matter where you
Nice.
are in the world. Don't book any meetings on your calendar. Don't let anyone else book meetings on your calendar, because that's where you can get into your flow. You can do some deep thinking. You can really solve problems without distractions. And I think one of the challenges we have just in the working world today is there's so many distractions, so many meetings, and you never get time to step back and go, what are my priorities? What problems am I trying to solve this week? How can I move those forward? Like, how can I get the mental space to do that well? And I think that's one of the things that helps us is we block out that time and let people kind of go deep on a topic rather than skim the surface all the time.
Yeah, that's good. That I think that protected time's great. Are there any other things that make the working conditions or the culture there somewhat unique?
I would say like you have to love the work you do. I'm sort of really boring about telling people like how lucky we are to work in marketing. It's a great career. I absolutely love it. You get to use the analytical part of your makeup to run campaigns and report on pipeline generation, conversion rates, the
Mm.
website, split testing, all that good stuff, like really analytical, what moves the needle, data-driven marketing. And then you also get to work on stuff like, hey, like what's our big tent campaign theme for this quarter, this half of the year, and
Mm.
how should we represent our business to our customers and prospects? Like how can we truly encapsulate our mission and our vision and our values, in a more evergreen campaign that makes sense to everybody. So really get creative around how you do that. So I think the work itself should be satisfying and enjoyable and challenging for people. And I think in marketing more than in many professions, that is the case. So I always encourage people starting out in their career to kind of do what I did almost by accident, like get exposure to as many facets of marketing as you possibly can, like
Yeah.
work in product marketing, really understand that's one of the pillars of good marketing. Work in content marketing, where you're feeding a demand gen team and a revenue marketing team with content that really engages an audience. Definitely work in revenue marketing, demand generation.
Mm.
That's one of the keys to the kingdom if you're a marketer. And then also, if you can get exposure to the creative PR, comms, those other elements of marketing that go to make up a really excellent marketing machine. So I would hope that the work itself is also really compelling for people and is one of the reasons that they stay because they're learning, they're
Yeah.
advancing in their careers, they're getting new roles, and they're hopefully having a good time doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what draws us all. Some of the things you've mentioned there definitely draw a lot of us into this profession, really. A lot of us. The reason I asked you at the beginning about you being a creative writer was because of a sense that a lot of people start out or go to university as a creative of some sort, be that a writer, a designer, an artist, or something, and it becomes clear that if they want to successfully monetize that creative skill, then marketing is often an obvious place to turn, isn't it? Because it is commercial, the most commercial side of creative, I guess,
Yeah,
can be.
I mean, that's one thing we haven't talked about yet, but like the relationship between marketing and sales. And I think
Mm,
that's another reason why marketing is so interesting because it is kind of a leading indicator of the health of a company. Like if you look at one of the fundamental responsibilities of a marketing team, it's to generate pipeline. And depending on your sales cycle in enterprise software, it typically is anything from 6 to 9 to 12 months, sometimes even longer, right? So if the marketing team is tightly aligned with sales and you're doing your job well, you're generating high quality pipeline, you're not really going to see the payoff on that pipeline for several quarters, even the following year,
yeah.
fiscal year. So it is really aligned to the growth trajectory of the business. And if you see dips in pipeline, what I call like finding the red, that's where you need to that's where you need your senior leadership to jump in and go, well, this particular region is underperforming from a pipeline perspective. We're fine right now, but down the road, that's going to be a problem. Like we're not going to have enough opportunities far enough advanced to basically to deliver on our goals, right, and to deliver on the
Mm.
targets that we've set as a company. So marketing is, in addition to all the creative stuff that we do and the branding that's really important, it is very aligned to the commercial health and the growth of the business too. So for anyone who's that way inclined, it's a great career.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's true that, and it's tricky for marketers though. I think at some businesses that closeness to sales can be problematic because marketers can be expected to drive quite short term results.
Yep.
But I'm hearing more. More companies are getting the fact that marketing is about driving future pipeline and sales is about closing on that. And you're right, it's marketing results are a great kind of indicator of that future health,
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
say.
And what I like to say is like pipeline's a team sport. It's not just marketing responsibility. It's
True.
not just the sales responsibility. Like if you're working in tandem with your sales partners, a lot of the early stage pipeline that you're creating is being developed by a BDR or SDR team, the sales development or business development reps. They're making the calls, they're running the hard yards to get people to engage, and then you're booking meetings, and those meetings become demos, and
Yeah.
those demos um, you know become opportunities that progress to closed won business.
Yeah.
So I think it's a again, another reason why I like the profession so much is that you're right at the heart of the company's commercial enterprise. You're right there
Yeah.
working in tandem with the business development, sales development teams, the sales teams, customer success. You're really working together to generate high quality pipeline that helps grow the business, and that helps the company be successful.
Well, it sounds like it's working really well there. But in your career, have you seen marketing not work well and be disjointed within a company? And what are the problems that you've seen around a marketing functions kind of place in the company?
Oh yeah, I've loads of war stories of like both marketing things that have gone horribly awry. Like it's humorous now, you can look back.
Oh,
But
yeah.
for example, at one point in my career, we were running a customer conference or a user conference in London, and it was a tremendous. That was when I worked in digital advertising. It was a tremendous conference, and we had all the right people there. And then you talk about unforeseen consequences. It was actually held in a museum in London, and some kid accidentally um, hit a fire alarm in the museum or
Yeah.
bumped into one of the exhibits and set off an alarm. and we had to evacuate the entire conference and stand outside in the rain for 30 minutes while they cleared the museum, made sure that all the artwork and artifacts were okay, and then could let us back in to continue the conference. So I've had my fair share of oh crap moments in marketing, and that's part of the fun of it. Um, I've also
Yeah.
seen where marketing and sales just aren't aligned, and where you've got finger pointing,
Yeah.
sales is giving out to marketing, complaining because the quality of the meetings, the leads, the opportunities are poor and they're not the right people, and you're wasting all that money on digital advertising and brand, but you're not giving us any leads that we can progress. And then you've got marketing pointing at sales going, we're giving you all of these great, early stage opportunities and you're just not working them correctly, right? That's a recipe for disaster if you have sales and marketing at cross purposes like that. Um, and it's just toxic. It's no fun for anybody, which is why I think more and more companies are realizing that sales and marketing alignment, unification of those
Mm.
two groups, and really close teamwork and collaboration is the path to success. And you'll often find it's not when things are going well and when you're exceeding all your pipeline goals and you're on target in terms of bookings and all that good stuff. It's when things are challenging, that's when you really need to lean on those relationships that you've built between marketing and sales and the rest of the organization. Because it's easy to be great friends when things are, all wine and roses. It's when you've got challenges, that's when you really need to lean on those partnerships that you've built over time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm interested in your role as CMO. I'd love to hear a bit about that. So you run a team. Is there a central team there in America that you sit with, as well as global teams in the various territories, right?
Yeah, there's a centralized team in our headquarters in Canada.
Oh, right.
So that's where the core team and most of the team is located. I'm based in the Bay Area in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it's a direct flight to Toronto. It's not bad. It's about an hour's drive from Toronto to Kitchener-Waterloo, where the
Yeah.
company's headquartered. So it means I'm, back and forth a fair amount to the headquarters for various meetings and to connect in with
Mm.
the marketing team and all that good stuff. But we also have teams located in other locations, in London, for example. It's an
Yeah.
international team in Singapore, Australia. So it's truly a global organization, a global marketing organization.
And do you
And
have specialists in all the disciplines, or do you outsource a lot of things to agencies for things like kind of paid media, social media, content creation, and that kind of thing, or do you like to keep a lot of that in house?
we like to keep a lot of it, not all of it, but most of it in-house, where it makes sense to have an agency. For example, PR, having a
Yeah.
PR agency that can amplify
Yeah.
the efforts of your public relations work, the press
Yeah.
releases that you put out. They will bring those media connections and the ability to understand, and know people in the industry that can amplify your message. I think that's important. So we'll
Yeah.
outsource for stuff like that where it makes total sense. We might not have the internal
Mm.
capability or network to do that effectively. But
No.
by and large, I mean, I like to use, I like people to be part of the team. We'll certainly use consultants where we need
Mm.
to, if there's a crunch on resources or we need to get a project out quicker and we simply don't have the people on staff to do that. We can use consultants, and we do. But my model is more to have people in region who are expert in running events, generating demand.
Mm.
Some of our functions are more centralized. So our digital advertising, for example, that is a centralized function and it supports each of the regions
Makes sense.
separately. Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's always a core kind of demand gen, for want of a better word, revenue marketing team in the regions that we're operating in.
Yeah. And is it all B2B?
Um, For us, yes. I mean, we sell to organizations. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
sell to like school districts, for example. We sell to universities, and then we sell to corporations. So yeah, we're an enterprise
yeah.
B2B company, correct?
Yeah, interesting. And just, I've never worked as a CMO, so I'm like curious, how close to the marketing are you? Was there a point in your career where you kind of were no longer hands on, and when was that? And now, yeah, and how close to the marketing are you now?
Hopefully, just close enough. Certainly in my career, I've been very hands-on, and I've
Yes.
run product marketing, and I've run demand gen, and I've managed PR and comms and various things. As a CMO, the team that you build around you is kind of the measure of your success, I think. And having people who can run those functions sort of diligently, efficiently, can be great leaders in their own right, hire and retain the right people. Um, you have to lean on your team to do that work, because you can't and you don't want to be the person who basically who tries to run everything. That's just you're on a hiding to nothing, as they say there. So I think it's
Mm.
having a really good leadership team around you and getting involved where you need to get involved, not where you feel like you might want to get involved, is kind of the important distinction. And that's probably one of the hardest things about being a CMO, is knowing when to let the team
Yeah.
um, go, and trusting that they've got the expertise, they've got the people, and they've got the knowledge of the industry and the customer to do a really great job. And knowing when you should get involved, when you need to actually accelerate something or change the direction of something. Those are the tough decisions, and that's I think comes with experience as well, and also a lot of it is trust. Like, do you trust your team
Yeah.
to execute well? Do you trust your team to make the right decisions, or to come to you when they're not sure what's the right decision? And again, that's all human relationships. Like, that's knowing people, and communicating, whether it's in person, on Slack, by email, like all of the ways, just being very open and available to the team, so that you can actually become a problem solver for them. You can
Mm.
unblock situations and get answers more quickly, and help them just do their jobs better. Because that's, I think, what a good CMO should do. You should facilitate great work. You're not always
Yeah.
going to be in the nuts and bolts of it yourself.
No, because your career, you've really gone through the whole, you started nearly 30 years ago and you've worked your way all the way up. So you've done so much of this stuff yourself. Yeah, it must be hard not to sort of brush someone aside and say, "Oh, stand aside, mate. I've got this. I'll do it." But you, of course,
It's funny, it's hard, and sometimes, and it's very easy, and other times, because
yeah, sure,
I think you learn as much from your team as you teach them. And often,
true.
like, what I love about uh, marketing, and having some experience in the role, is that you're constantly learning, and like, you are meeting people from different generation with really fresh perspective and different perspective on what works and doesn't work. So I'd say it is both
Mm.
ways, Will. It's like, hopefully I'm giving them some good pointers and sort of direction from my experience, but I'm also learning from them,
Yeah.
how to execute really incredible campaigns, which channels are starting to
Mm.
generate more engagement with our audience, where they live, yeah, those kind of things. So it should be a two-way street.
Yeah, definitely. And just in your teams, have you noticed in recent, like, the last year or two, any particular skills gaps emerging in marketing?
Um, I think AI is one that every marketing team needs to be getting to grips with. Like, a lot of
Mm.
our key vendors are starting to layer in, AI elements to their products. So if you're an ABM platform, you're building an AI tool to help, you know, create target audiences and create messaging for those audiences by role, and you're training that model on your customer base, and the opportunities you create that are successful versus those that aren't, and what messaging works, and so on. So I think marketers in general have a lot of work to do, to understand how AI can enhance a lot of the tools that they use currently, whether it's marketing automation, account-based marketing, digital advertising. Like AI is going to have a role in sort of in all of those fields. And also on the creative side, like you know, generating alternative headlines, like summarizing content. There's just so many applications of AI that can really
Mm.
benefit you as a marketer. And there's not a lot of learning resources or guidance right now. It's a bit of the Wild West at the moment. So, how do you figure out how to adopt AI and good practices in AI that don't expose your customer data or any of that important information that's proprietary to your
Yeah.
company to to a large language model that you don't want to. So I think I'd say AI is one of the areas where marketers have a lot of work to do to figure out how it can actually benefit the
Mm.
craft of marketing. That's
Yeah.
certainly one area.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in response to that, the DMI now there's an AI course. There's a lot of AI resources. Prompt cheat sheets and guides and explainers and everything because it's become such a huge in-demand topic. But you know what? Interesting thing about AI, it's so on the tactical end, like you say, generating alternative headlines, creating content, editing video content. But so we're all, at that end, we're all worried about our jobs. If you're a copywriter, if you're a designer, but as a CMO, how are you threatened by AI? How does it affect your job? Because you're not writing headlines and things like that.
Yeah, the robots are coming. I don't look at it that way. I mean, maybe I'm overly optimistic. I still look, AI is a tool. I think it's a tool that we created, right? That we invented, that we own. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
concern that AI will kind of will go rogue on us and RoboCop and become sentient and all that stuff. I think there's a lot of hyperbole and honestly just a lot of guff about that at the moment.
Yeah.
It does have the potential to to have an impact on the world that you would not want and to make decisions that it should never be making, right? So I think it's important, like people should always be at the center of learning. People should always be at the center of AI, right? You shape the tools and the tools shape you. I'm not sure who said that, but yeah, I think it's true. Like we are in control of how AI evolves and develops, and we will come up with standards for what AI should have influence over and what it shouldn't. Not nuclear weapon systems, for example. That'd be one thing I would say we should keep AI away from, and you could argue we should keep people away from as well. Um, so yeah, I think that there's lots of ways AI can really benefit us and the world, and there's lots of ways it can damage the world as well. So it's just such a new technology. We have to I think we have to engage with it. We have to use it at the tactical level, like you said, Will, and
Yeah.
learn what its power is, even at that level. And then I'm confident that maybe I'm overly optimistic, but people will figure out a way to harness this technology like we've harnessed other technologies, and hopefully it will be for the greater good. Not in every
Yeah.
case and not always, but I think on balance it'll be for the greater good.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that's true. I'm sure it is. But aside from that, what other challenges does the modern CMO face? Do you think?
Um, as a CMO, I think you're constantly watching the market and you're constantly trying to figure out like how your organization, like, have you got the right messaging um, that articulates your business value properly? Are you leveraging your customer base and your customer stories well enough? Are you telling your story to the world in a powerful, effective way?
Mm.
Are you winning or losing market share? So there's a lot of there's just a lot of things to consider. It's not like you're just in charge of demand gen or you're just in charge of product marketing. Those are very challenging roles in and
Mm.
of themselves. But with the CMO role, there's the added responsibility of making sure that the company is well represented in the market, and that you can respond to changes in the market quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest challenge for any CMO. It's keeping your eye on the execution part of your marketing organization and making sure that you're doing good work, up leveling the brand, running high quality campaigns, keeping the teams motivated and excited about what they're doing, and also then steering the company through the choppy competitive waters that any company has to has to deal with.
So if you go on I don't know, go and do something else, and you had to find a new CMO, okay, what handful of skills would you absolutely demand that someone who came and filled your shoes had to have? Do you think, as a modern CMO?
Um, I think there's many people that could do my job. Honestly, everyone would bring something different to it. I would say for me, um, a good sense of humor is
Mm,
important, and a sense of perspective, right? Because there's going to be highs and lows and ups and downs, hopefully more highs than lows.
yeah,
But you do need to keep things in perspective. I think somebody who is a good collaborator and likes to work closely with other departments. So it's not heads down, marketing's doing this, aren't we fantastic? It's like, how can we help sales? How can we help customer success? How can we help, the sales development team? So
great.
somebody that can lift their head and look outward is really important. Someone who's got a courage to take a big swing at a market, at messaging, at positioning, because it's very easy in marketing to just do more of the same, right, and play it safe.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to grow, and if you're looking to, to attach to new markets and increase mind share, market share, your build your brand, like you've got to take some bets, and hopefully they're smart bets, and you can show that they're working. But you need some courage to make those decisions, because they're not always clear cut. It's not always clear what the right path is. Like if it was
Mm,
easy, I could do it, right? So yeah, I'd say that, and the ability um, to sort of to connect with and manage the rest of the leadership team as well, so that
yeah.
marketing is an integral part of the business. It's clear where marketing can add value, and it's clear, what marketing brings to the organization when it's done well. Oh, and the last thing I'd say is the ability to recognize when you've made a mistake and when things haven't gone well. And the human tendency is to pretend that didn't happen and put your head down and just say nothing, versus, actually that was a failure on our part, and we can do better and we'll learn from that. I think that's really important because, nothing goes 100% your way in life, right? There's always going to be bumps in the road.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I suppose some people say something. I'm paraphrasing terribly here, but some people say that a good leader kind of owns their team's mistakes, and sort of takes responsibility for that within the organization, even though they didn't commit it. They oversaw it, and I suppose you become a champion for your
Yep.
teams, right?
Yeah, and I think you set the tone for the team. And I'm going to I'll pull out my English background here. A good Samuel Beckett quote for you: like, ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. I think you need, not that you're encouraging failure, but you need a culture where it's okay to take a chance and to make calculated risks. And if they don't work out, you
Hmm.
learn from them and you do it differently the next time, and you share that experience with the rest of the team. So I think setting the tone that, like, we're going to push the envelope, we're going to make some bold choices and decide where to put our treasure of budget and time and energy and focus. Not all of those bets are going to work out. Like, some of them will not work out. And I
Hmm.
think, it's okay to encourage, people to take those risks and calculated risks, as I call them, and not to be afraid to fail. Because if you're afraid to fail, that's paralyzing, right? You end up just,
Hmm.
avoiding risk altogether. And if you're in a high growth space, that's not great, right? That means the company's running you, you're not running the company.
Well, that's true. I mean, your thing is you're in tech essentially, and that's in Silicon Valley. That's obviously been a mantra for years: is fail fast, fail often, fail better. Outside of away from tech, I think there's still, even though it's been talked about a lot, it's less acceptable. There is definitely pressure not to fail. I think still, even if it gets talked about, or even if someone has read a book here and there about that, it's just this human tendency, isn't it, to just be allergic to the idea and not want to be seen in any way as having got something wrong and called it wrong. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, people will shy away from that. And like, let's be honest too, there are certain professions and industries where failure isn't acceptable. Like if you're building
True.
a 747, you don't want the door flying off in midair. Like that could
Don't
never happen.
fail fast and fail often. No,
Yeah,
no.
so that like there are critical failures that you have to avoid if if you're a surgeon or there's certain careers where
Yeah.
you do have to, but in tech, there's still the pressure to succeed more than you fail and to take calculated risks. But yeah, I think you can be a little less afraid of failure. And then on the personal side of it, I do like you know, when people raise their hand and say, look, that rather than make excuses and blame someone else, which,
Yeah.
isn't very productive, they're like, look, yeah, I tried that and it didn't go well, or I didn't do that very well. I'm going to do it better the next time. I think that's a good trait in people that people are often reluctant to share, right? That make sure you don't look bad, make sure you don't look foolish.
Oh
Whereas in
yeah.
fact, people really appreciate it when something does go a bit sideways, and you're like, well, that was my mistake. I'm sorry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we've kept you for long enough, I think. So I just got one final question for you. I'd love you to actually encapsulate. This may involve repeating some things you've talked about, perhaps potentially, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you for a handful of tips on success in a marketing career. The things you wish you could tell your younger self, which is the position lots of our listeners are in. Tips for that more successful and fulfilling and happy marketing career.
Sure. First of all, marketing's a great career. If you're thinking about it, thumbs up. I think you should go for it. The reason I think it's such a great career, I've touched on, but I think it marries a lot of both the creative and analytic side of people's, abilities and personalities, and I love that. If you do make the leap into marketing, my advice is just be a voracious learner, a reader, like absorb every possible reward, resource, online course that you can get your hands on. Get as much education, learning, training as you can because there's so much to learn. So always be learning as
Mm.
someone who works in marketing. And then I think try and map out your career, like what areas of marketing are interesting to you. So you might start in product marketing, but sort of cut your teeth there, but like look to get some experience in demand gen, look to get some experience on the digital side. Marketing operations is a great career. Try and work in sales for a little while as well, so you can understand what
Mm.
it's like to actually, to sell a product and carry a quota and all that stuff. Like I had the opportunity to do that. I can't say I was very good at it or I loved it, but it was certainly time well spent. So yeah, I think just you give yourself as wide an experience as you can across all the different roles. And it may be that you decide to specialize in product marketing, for example, and that's a phenomenal career. And there's very few marketing organizations that run well without good product marketing, for example.
Yeah.
Same is true of demand gen, I would say. So there are areas of marketing that provide for really interesting, fun careers, and I would chase after those. But in summary, uh, marketing is a great. It's never a dull moment.
True.
It's plugged into the heartbeat of a company and its growth and its commercial, its commercial viability. It's a great profession.
It is. And that's a nice note to end on. Thanks, Brian. Well, look, it's been lovely to chat to you about this stuff. Really insightful to hear it from your perspective. Just tell listeners where they can connect with you, find you online, after this episode?
Sure. Yeah. Listen, I really enjoyed the conversation, Will. Thanks for talking with me. And probably the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. So it's just Brian Finnerty. And feel free to connect with me. I'm always sort of open to connecting with other marketing tech professionals. So yeah, that's the best way
Cool.
to reach out to me or to get hold of me. And I've really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you.
We will do. Well, look, yeah, same here. Thanks a lot, Brian, and hope to chat to you again soon.
All right. Cheers, Will. Bye bye.